Hello and welcome to Ravenwoods. Today's video is about Florence Cook, a Victorian-era medium. Florence Eliza Cook, born 1856, was a medium who claimed to materialize a spirit named Katie King. The question to whether the spirit was real or a fraud was a notable public controversy of the mid-1870s. Her abilities were endorsed by Sir William Crooks, but many observers were skeptical of Crook's investigations, both at the time and subsequently. Cook was a teenage girl who started to claim mediumistic abilities in 1870. In 1871 to 1872, she developed her abilities under the established mediums Frank Hearn and Charles Williams. Hearn was associated with the spirit named John King, and Florence became associated with Katie King, stated to be John King's daughter. Hearn was exposed as a fraud in 1875. Katie King developed from appearing as a disembodied face to a fully physical materialization. The spirit was said to have appeared first between 1871 and 1874 in seances conducted by Florence Cook in London, and later in 1874 and 1875 in New York in seances held by the mediums Jenny Holmes and her husband Nelson Holmes. Katie King was believed by spiritualists to be the daughter of a spirit John King, a spirit control of the 1850s through the 1870s that appeared in many seances involving materialized spirits. A spirit control is a powerful and communicative spirit that organizes the appearance of other spirits at a seance. John King claimed to be the spirit of Henry Morgan, the buccaneer. At Hackney on 9th of December 1873, lawyer William Volkman attended a seance held by Florence Cook, during which Katie King materialized and, as was customary, held the hands of the participants. Suspicious of the spirit's similarity with Cook, Volkman seized the spirit's hand and waist, accusing it of being the medium masquerading as her ghost. The spirit was wrestled from Volkman's grasp by the other participants and returned to a cabinet, from which Cook emerged some minutes later. Volkman published his opinion that the spirit was masquerading by Cook. Supporters of Miss Cook denounced Volkman on the grounds that he had broken his agreement to proper etiquette required in the seance, thus negating his credibility as an investigator. Volkman was associated with another medium, Mrs. Guppy, who might have wished to denigrate her rival. Moreover, it was argued that since spirits borrowed energy and matter from their medium, it was not surprising that Katie King resembled Cook. Despite the defense of her position, Cook and her supporters were hurt by this incident. Newspapers were referring to it as an exposure and sought further support for their position. To this end, they turned to Crooks, who was a prominent and respected scientist at the time. Between 1871 and 1874, Sir William Crooks investigated the phenomenon produced by the spiritualist mediums. He described the conditions he imposed on the mediums as follows: "It must be at my own house, and my own selection of friends and spectators, under my own conditions, and I may do whatever I like as regards to the apparatus." The alleged medium Daniel Douglas Home asserted that Crooks was duped by Cook. A 15-year-old Cook, alone in Crook's house, with Crook's friends and family as witnesses, was said to have materialized the spirit of Katie King, who walked about, talked, allowed herself to be weighed and measured, and even held the family's baby. On one occasion, at a joint seance in Crook's home in March 1874, Katie King was seen in the company with Florence Maple, a spirit materialized by the medium Mary Showers, who was exposed as a fraud shortly thereafter. The sessions were held with the medium secluded in the dark, because spiritualists believed that materialization requires very dim surroundings to succeed, though occasionally the spirits materialized in the light and some photographs were taken, as is apparently typical of materialized spirits. Katie's exact height and weight varied, though Katie was always taller than Florence Cook, with a larger face and different hair and skin. According to those present, the two were both visible at the same time, so that Florence could not have assumed the role of the spirit. The final appearances of Katie King in connection with Florence Cook took place in April and May of 1874 at the Cook family home in Hackney. The audiences were invited to sit in a parlor opening into a bedroom, in which Florence would start her trance. At some time, Katie King would emerge. At some point, the audience would be shown a figure, apparently Florence, lying on the floor of the bedroom with her head covered by a shawl, while Katie King was still visible in the parlor. A number of witnesses, such as Edward Cox, recorded their doubts about the proceedings, while others claimed that they had seen the two clearly, such as Crooks and Florence Marriott, who claimed that she had seen Katie naked in Florence's company. Crooks' report, published in 1874, contained his assertion that Florence Cook, as well as mediums Kate Fox and Daniel Douglas Home, were producing genuine phenomenon. The publication caused an uproar, and his testimony about Katie King was considered the most outrageous and sensational part of the report. Cook was repeatedly exposed as a fraud medium, but she had been trained in the arts of the seance, which managed to trick Crooks. In 1880, another one of Cook's materialization was interrupted by one of the witnesses, George Sitwell, who seized the spirit figure and revealed that the medium was not in her chair. After studying the reports, science historian Sherry Lynn Lyons wrote Katie was Florence herself and at the other times an accomplice. Regarding Crooks, Lyons wrote, here was a man with a flawless scientific reputation who discovered a new element but could not detect a real-life maiden was masquerading as a ghost. After news of Katie King had spread abroad, the American mediums Jenny and Nelson Holmes also claimed to have materialized her. Robert Dale Owen, the politician and avowed spiritualist, had experienced this materialization and wrote about it in an article for the Atlantic Monthly in January 1875. Just as the article was going to press, however, a woman named Eliza White stepped forward and claimed to have masqueraded as Katie. White's face matched that of Katie King in photographs sold by the Holmes and their agent. Both the Atlantic Monthly and Owen admitted in public to being duped. Arthur Conan Doyle maintains that this exposure did more damage to spiritualism than any other exposure of the period. Investigations conducted by leading spiritualist Henry Steele Olcott in 1875 reestablished the credibility of the Holmeses in eyes of many spiritualists. The story eventually accepted by most spiritualists is that Eliza White had been hired to pose as Katie King for a photograph to sell to the public. The Holmeses did not want to photograph the real Katie King, since the bright light would have ruined the materialization. Once involved, Eliza White first extorted money from the Holmeses and then sold the story to the press. Do you believe that the spirit of Katie King was real? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like to see more content like this, please subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a good day.